Welcome back to another episode of The Review, hosted on the Alaska Landmine. Today, we're going to be talking about the controversy surrounding the recent decision by Andy Kriner to keep his restaurant, Kriner's Diner, open, despite EO 15, which was the mayor's emergency ordinance that went out to shut down indoor dining around the municipality of Anchorage. Welcome to The Review. For those who aren't familiar with Kriner's Diner, we have to start there. Serving greasy Americana food and maybe some of the best hangover food in all of Anchorage, Kriner's is located on C Street, close to Fireweed. Andy Kriner is and has been a very outspoken conservative voice throughout the city of Anchorage. Now, this controversy really started because of the mandate EO 15. Now, this order went out on July 31st and was supposed to start on August 3rd. Ending on August 30th. So it was a 27-day long mandate. This covers things like how many individuals can be together inside, how many people can be together outside, if there's food served, or how closely you have to stand next to someone before you have to wear a face mask. There are a lot of provisions in this, including closing down bingo halls, closing down theaters, and indoor dining within the municipality of Anchorage. The controversy really started when, after this went into effect on August 3rd, Andy Kriner didn't shut down his indoor service. The controversy started to take off on social media, where people who were opposed to Emergency Order 15 and supportive of Kriner started to make their voice very loud, very vocally, by sharing statuses that came out from Kriner's Diners, and generally it just started to explode. If you missed it, that's okay. You're living a normal person life and you aren't on social media all the time. For the rest of us, we've been seeing this go on for the last few days and seeing it slowly build more and more momentum online. When Kriner didn't shut down his restaurant, that prompted the municipality of Anchorage to try to take legal action against him.
We are aggressively enforcing against businesses that are violating the mandate. And I do want to point out it is very, very few businesses are not complying. So for the very few businesses that are insisting on indoor dining right now, we are issuing them fines. And those aren't just a one-time thing. That is a fine every single day. Businesses that aren't responding to that first contact by us with the stop work order, we are taking them to court and seeking an injunction and a temporary restraining order from the court.
2 days ago, on Friday, Andy Kriner showed up with his lawyer Blake Quackenbush to argue against the municipality of Anchorage. Ultimately, that injunction and temporary restraining order was successful on the part of the municipality. That didn't stop people from coming out to support Andy and his business.
Here before, part of it is to support them because they took a stand for their livelihood. The other part is I just needed lunch, so I'm going for lunch.
I am so proud of these people for their courage to be open that I want to give them some money for their legal funds.
Phone never quits ringing, text, people I've never met. Everybody wants to help.
So, what's the next step from here? What do you think is going to happen?
I don't have a next step. I have no plan. I'm just going to do this as long as I can. I got no plan.
If you close, would you close for good?
What do you mean?
Like if you close the restaurant now because of Berkowitz's order?
Heavens no.
No, okay. You'd be good. You just don't think it's fair.
Yeah. I mean, apparently thousands of other people don't either. I'm sleeping really good at night, so I must be doing the right thing, right?
From my anecdotal observation, it seems that Kriner is winning in the court of public opinion. However, the problem with the court of public opinion is that it doesn't influence the court of law. And there's a lot that I want to be able to talk about and cover in this episode in regard to civil disobedience. However, where the controversy is now is the municipality on Saturday, after Kriner hadn't shut his business down on Saturday and after the injunction had been given by Judge Arseth, they e-filed with the court to have an emergency hearing. If you're like me and you're not a lawyer, this is where things start to feel a little bit confusing on first blush. So regardless of what you think about EO 15, regardless of what Kriner thinks about EO 15, regardless of what the municipality thinks about EO 15, and the civil disobedience that Kriner was exhibiting by staying open and by continuing to serve and defy the order, there's another issue at play now. Friday, when Judge Arseth issued the injunction, that was supposed to make it so Kriner wasn't serving food at his restaurant. Well, the interview that I had with Kriner, that was on Saturday, and his restaurant was packed and there was a line going out of the restaurant, which prompted the municipality of Anchorage on Saturday to request a contempt for court hearing. I went to go sit down with Daryl Thompson, who is an attorney in Anchorage, has been practicing for more than 35 years within the city, to ask him what exactly this all means.
If you violate the court order, then you can be held in contempt of court. There are three basic elements for determining whether or not someone is in fact guilty of contempt of court. One is there an easily understandable order? Were they on notice of it, and could they comply? It's a pretty simple three-part test. And so, contempt of court is when the court orders you to do something and you don't. I have no idea if Kriner knows that being in contempt of court is a crime. I would assume he would, but I don't know. The advice has to be from an attorney: you need to comply with the court order, or there are consequences, potentially criminal consequences, and I think it's irresponsible to not advise your client of that. I'm not judging whether or not their attorney did or did not. I wasn't there. It's privileged communication. I don't know. All I can tell you is that it is an affirmative responsibility of an officer of the court, when the judge orders your client to do something or to refrain from doing something, that you must instruct them to do that. I think a different pathway for Kriners and others might have been to be proactive, instead of being the defendant on a pleading, to be the plaintiff, to go in and ask for TRO of their own, and for a restraining order to restrain the enforcement of that particular executive order, and make your argument up front. Ask for a declaratory judgment declaring that it's unconstitutional. I haven't analyzed that. I'm not sure what the outcome might be, but I can tell you that's probably a better pathway, rather than being named as a defendant and finding yourself there.
Before we go any further with the review, I want to take a moment to thank all the people who interviewed for this. This episode is going to have a lot more interviews than usual episodes would, because of how nuanced and complicated this issue has become. Not only is it nuanced and complicated, but it's also pretty volatile and fast-moving. I say that because we ended up taking a break during the filming of this. I ended up taking a break and going and doing a quick video shoot for a client, and when I came back, I got a couple of messages from the team over at the Landmine that the situation had changed. I want to go really quickly to play the video of Kriner at his family dinner talking about how the situation has changed.
Was completely overwhelming. The support from the community, hard to even explain to people. Just want to thank everybody for coming down, and people handed us money every day, and that money's going to go towards fines, mostly from Saturday, because we found out this week we're going to get levied fines. It sounds like $15,000 a day, possibly $15,000 a day, starting Saturday, and we were open Saturday. So we were closed today to give everybody a break, and then tomorrow morning we're going to open for takeout only at 9 o'clock. We'll be open until 8 at night. We wish we could be open longer, but we just, can't afford that much money. But we have enough money to pay that first fine from Saturday, thanks to all you folks.
So this seems like a totally different Kriner than the one that we had been interviewing on Saturday. On Saturday, he seemed cheerful. He seemed excited to rage against the machine and fight. And this Kriner, I don't know what else had happened to him that day, but he wasn't clapping along with his family. He wasn't smiling. This looks like a guy who was broken by the wheel of the government machine. I'm not sure where the $15,000 number came from. If that was the mayor requesting that the courts levy a $15,000 fine per day starting on Saturday when he broke the temporary restraining order, or if that was a new series of signs that the municipality have called him, and it was, let's talk about like food safety and all these other groups, and suddenly the accumulation of all of these fines equal up to $15,000. Either way, that's too much for a restaurant runner to outrun, and I think that's too much for the economy of scale of Anchorage to be able to give him in support. It looks like in the court of law, Kriner is losing the battle. But there's another court that has to be brought to the forefront, the court of public opinion. Now, the court of public opinion, I think Kriner's winning. The court of law, I think that he's going to have a really hard time going forward. It looks like an uphill battle in that direction. But the court of public opinion will keep people going to Kriner's for potentially years to come. But there are two different issues now that Kriner has to deal with. There is refusing to comply with EO15, which, if I'm being totally honest with you guys, my personal opinion, I think EO15 went too far. I think that it's purposefully hitting restaurants harder than it is just about any other group. And I agree with civil disobedience in a lot of different cases. But I think as soon as we got to the temporary restraining order is where you lost me. Because as soon as you got to that point, there was another way to go about it besides continuing to just say, I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to keep doing this. I think at that point was the time to go and challenge the law instead of giving a big FU to the judicial system. And the judicial system doesn't take too kindly to that. That will bolster and strengthen the argument in the court of public opinion. It's going to galvanize those who supported Kriner already. It's going to galvanize that support and push them to give him more support. For years to come, I think people will go to his business. I'll be curious to see what happens tomorrow as far as what Judge Arseth decides to do, and if it is a civil penalty or a criminal one that Kriner ends up facing. I do think that whatever happens tomorrow, it will reverberate throughout the political offices and the elections that will be coming up soon. We have 3 elections that this is probably going to affect, in my opinion. And if not this argument will be re-articulated and reimagined into different scenarios, but I do think that this argument has a lot of weight. I think it will matter to that legislative races that are coming up that will be decided both on August 18th and over November for the general election. I think it's going to affect what happens during the April election for mayor of Anchorage, and I think we should start looking at those mayoral candidates and what their perspective is around this issue and how they would deal with it differently. And more so than the others, I think this is going to be a big deal when it comes to the 2012 gubernatorial election. Between, as of right now, what I see is a foregone conclusion. Lots of things happen over the span of a year and a half, over 2 years, over 2 years. A lot can happen over that time, but right now I see the battle as being Ethan Berkowitz versus Mike Dunleavy. These two have gone toe-to-toe with creating more and reducing the amount of COVID regulations over time. And whatever you think about the Kriner's Diner situation, just remember that these situations continue to be fluid. No one knows the outcome. We can all have our opinions, but we should be able to disagree and have the conversation, because ultimately we're talking about our freedoms. We're talking about our freedoms and our lives. And these are conversations that should be had. I'd love to hear what any of you guys think about this in the comment section below. Thank you so much for joining on yet another episode of The Review, hosted on the Alaska Landmine. I'm Cale Green, your host, and it's been a pleasure talking with you guys today about this issue. Thank you so much, and see you soon.